Hello, everybody. How's your days going? I'm doing so well. I just moved in Las Vegas for furthering my major, my the teaching here. So, but I'm so glad to share my ideas with you guys because we have a Zoom, so we still can do. So I'm so honored to share my idea with you, and I need to further this lecture with you about the history of the church music. So today, I'm going to talk about the 18th century's music. Yeah, and the 19th century's music is for the next lecture. So today's timetable is like this. So firstly, I'm going to talk about the Europe in a century of the change because we should understand what happened uh, at the period. And then I'm going to focus on the famous composers at the time because I think I already dealt with so many important um, important church history like theory and something important point with you already. So I think from this time the most significant thing is talking about the famous composers and the music because you can understand the why you listen the music by these composers because in normal life or in the church life you already listen to so many times you know about the music. So today i'm gonna I'm gonna focus on that music examples with a YouTube video. So please, please don't skip it. That all of them are so important. So now I'm going to talk about the European century of change. In political and the social terms, as in music and the church music, the 18th century moved from the continuity with the past through new currents to a radical change, uh, culminating revolutions at the end. When the century began, a balance of the power was emerging in Europe among the several strong centralized states, each supported by a professional military and the government. France had the biggest army, but Louis the First lavished spending on the wars abroad and the spectacles at home was depleting the treasury, and his ambitions were checked by other nations. I'm so sorry. Great Britain, formed by the Union of England and Scotland in the 1707, had the most powerful navy and used it to force India, Canada, and the several Caribbean islands from the France during the 7 Years' War in the 1756 to 63. Having won back Hungary from the Turks in the late 17th century, Austria was increasing its influence, reflected by the emergence in the late 18th century of its capital, Vienna, as the leading musical city in Europe. A new power emerged when the Prussia became a kingdom in the 701 and developed one of the continent's largest and the best trained armies. Late in the century, Poland, where the nobles had resisted unification of power under the king, fell victim to the centralized states around it. Prussia, Russia, and Austria divided the Poland's territories among themselves, and erased it from the map for over a century. By then, the American Revolution and the French Revolution were bringing winds of the change that would remake the political culture of Europe and the Americas. The population of Europe expanded rapidly, especially after 1750. The new months were fed by a growing food supply, made this possible through improved agricultural methods, such as the crop rotation and the intensive um, manuring, and the new crops like the potato introduced from the New World, whose widespread adoption ended the frequent famines that plagued Europe in the previous centuries. Roads were gradually improved, making travel faster and more comfortable. A 100-mile trip that took 50 hours in the 1700s and took only 16 hours in the 1800s. As a result, intercity, the postal service became more efficient and less expensive. Trade increased both within Europe and with Asia and the New World. As manufacturing and the trade became more gainful, the urban middle class grew in size and the economic growth, while the landed nobility became less important, though they still occupied the top of the social ladder. So as the continent became more urbanized, nature was increasingly idealized. The noble class nostalgia for rural life was perfectly captured in the painting by Jean Antoine Watteau. You can see that the picture on the screen. This is the good examples about their nostalgia. Yeah. So postural the themes were also prominent in the musical works from the Scarlatti's cantatas or Vivaldi's concerto, the Four Seasons near the beginning of the century, to Gluck's opera Orfeo Euridice, and Haydn's oratory at the Seasons near its end. So many new schools were founded both for the governmental elite teaching the traditional Greek and the Latin, and for the middle classes providing a more practical education. King Frederick the Great of Prussia and Empress Maria Theresa of Austria sought to require primary school for every child, although they were only partially successful. By 1800, half the male population of England and France was literate, and the women, usually taught at home, were catching up. Daily newspapers began publishing in London in the 1702 and quickly spread to other cities. From cheap paperbacks to leather-bound tomes, more and more books were published, purchased, read, and passed around. Novels became the most popular form of literature. At public coffee house meetings of learned socialities, and the salons gatherings in the private homes hosted by well-to-do women, people discuss the current events, ideas, literatures, and music. So this happened in the 18th century. For your understanding, I'm gonna share the one video about the 18th century. I hope this is helpful for you.
However, in the end, when we pull this lens back and we discuss the 18th century, many students will find that this is such a pivotal age, that so much is changing here in the 18th century that sets the stage for the 19th and 20th centuries, that they will find that it is perhaps one of the more important missing links in their understanding of history. And we can begin with some of the cultural and intellectual elements that are in play here and on the rise. As we saw in our second lecture on the Enlightenment, this is an age where a number of inventions and discoveries are really beginning to take shape. It's not necessarily yet an age that feels modern. Maybe that's why the 18th century is such a misunderstood century. When we look at it culturally, we see lots of powdered wigs, colonial and revolutionary era folks who dress differently than us, who act differently than us, who seem so much removed and remote from us. And yet it still, on at least an intellectual and cultural level, feels very much like it's becoming an age that we are familiar with. Well, of course, in this century, the changes, the discoveries, the inventions in the scientific revolution, as well as in the development of expansion in trade and travel, particularly on the high seas, forms the backdrop of so much of what is in play here. We mentioned before, of course, that the steam engine is eventually
So, 18th century in the Europe is more about a revolution and the new discovery. So, churchy and the church music were more belonging to the noble and uh, the basic institutions. So, church music did not develop rapidly, but followed the directions by the traditional things, by powerful, famous composers and theorists. So today I'm going to deal with famous famous composers, like Vivaldi. So yes. So about the Vivaldi, the best known Italian composer uh, of the of the early 18th century was Antonio Vivaldi, ever, who was born and spent most of his career in Venice. Uh, a virtuoso violinist, master teacher, and a renowned composer of opera, cantatas, and church music. He is known today primarily for his concertos, which number around 50, 100. So Vivaldi's main position from the 703 to 1740 was as a teacher, composer, conductor, and the director of musical instruments at the Pio Ospedale della Pietà. The Pietà was one of the 4 hospitals in Venice, homes for orphan or poor boys and girls, which were run like restrictively boarding schools and provide excellent instructions in music to those girls who showed talent. These institutions paralleled the Naples conservatories, except that the careers as instrumentalists or church musicians were not open to women. And before the girls were allowed to leave, they had to agree never to perform public. Educating the girls in the music served other purposes: to occupy their time, to make them more desirable as prospects for marriage or prepare them for convent life, and to earn the donation for the hospitals through regular performances, such as the concert in pictured on the screen like that. So services with music at the Pieta and other places of worship in Venice attract large audiences, and travelers wrote about these occasions with enthusiasm. Vivaldi's position required him to maintain the string instruments, teach his students to play, and constantly compose new music for them to perform. He wrote oratorios and the music for Mass and the Vespers, including the well-known Gloria in D major, but most of his works for the Pieta were instrumental, primarily concertos for church festivals. Concertos were uniquely well suited for players of varying abilities because the best performers could show off their skill in the solo part, while those of lesser ability could play in the orchestra. So I want to share the video. I already mentioned the name When Known Gloria in D major. This music is so important, so exciting.
Introduced, and as a result,
And this video is quietly long, but please focus on the watching the video. This is not only the music, this is the also scenes, you know, explaining the the churches, you know, music at the time, you know, and also about the Ospedale della Pieta. So I'm gonna play. I'm gonna stop the video by now because we should keep going. But as you see, every players and singers are girls, young girls. They they were educated so well with the music, but they cannot they cannot sing and play the music in public. So I think it is so sad. But now every girl can sing everywhere. Yeah, but that is a history. But we live in a better life, right? So I'm going to put further the history about the famous composer named the Johann Sebastian Bach. So posterity has raised Johann Sebastian Bach to the peak of the all time in the Western tradition. His current position contrasts with his reputation in his own day. When he was renowned in Protestant Germany as an organ virtuoso, keyboard composer, and a writer of learned contrapuntal works, but comparatively little of his voice chamber or orchestral music was published or circulated in a manuscript, in part because he focused on composing for professional performers. In the course of his career, Bach embraced all the major styles, forms, and genres of his time, except opera, blended them in new ways and developed them further. The result is music of the unprecedented richness. Although some 18th century listeners found his music cluttered or forced, and it was regarded as old-fashioned by the time he died, it was always esteemed by specialists. The revival and the publication of his works in the 19th century brought him legends of admirers, performers, and the listeners from the leading musicians of the day to the general public. So I'm gonna talk about the Bach, with the three parts because he's huge. He's huge for the Protestant church music. So I actually I want to share all of his music, but we don't have enough time. So uh, I would like to introduce you his famous works. Uh, the first is that his organ music. So this is the Fantasia and the Fog in the G minor by Bach. This music is so beautiful with the beat and the beautiful organ. feel that his passion to praise for God, the glorious, omnipotent God. You know, this music is by Bach. So beautiful music. That's why that's why listeners love Bach's music forever. So I'm gonna keep talk about the Johann Sebastian Bach. So uh, I can tell you, we can divide his musical life with the three sections. So first is the Weimar, and the second is the Crethen, and the third is the Leipzig. These all three are a name of city. So he he was hired by Weimar and Crethen and the Leipzig, the church and the court. So the first court organist at the Weimar, he composed mostly for organ. When he became concert master at the Weimar, he also wrote cantatas for the court chapel. As a court music director at the Crethen, where he had no former church music duties, he turned out mostly solo or ensemble music for domestic or court entertainment, along with some pedagogical works. At Leipzig, in charge of the music at the four churches, he produced cantatas and other church music. His appointment in the 1729 as a director of the Leipzig Collegium Musicum led him to write concertos and chamber works. Numerous pieces for the organ or harpsichord also date from the Leipzig period, including teaching pieces for his many private students. Bach's life reminds us that musicians were not free agents, but were subject to the wishes of their employers. When Bach accepted the position at Crethen, the Duke of Weimar would not let him leave at first and imprisoned him for a month before allowing him to go. As the cantor of St. Thomas School and the director of the music in Leipzig, Bach was an employee of the town council, and in his contract, he had to pledge himself to lead an exemplary life and not to leave town without the permission from the mayor. He was the council's third choice after Telemann, who used the offer to leverage a raise from his bosses in Hamburg, and Christoph Graupner, whose employer in the Darmstadt refused to accept his resignation but increased his pay. So, as you see, he was always hired by the city's council or church. So he was composed a lot of church music, and not only church music, but just classical music. But the most important thing by him is church music. So I'm gonna share the famous cantata by Bach. So the name is Wacht auf Luft und die Stimme. So this is also played by Netherlands Bach Society. I would like to tell you, Netherlands Bach Society is so important nowadays, because they always play Bach music to make so many videos with beautiful scenes. So I recommend you to subscribe the Netherlands Bach Society and check all music by them.
kommt, er kommt, der Bräutigam kommt.
This is the recitative part.
Zions kommt heraus, sein Ausgang eilet aus der Ehe in
Usually
eurem
cantata is starting with
Mutterhaus.
the chorus and then the
Der
recitative, and
Bräutigam kommt,
the next
der
is the
einem
aria or
Reh und
duet.
jungen Hirsche gleich auf den Hügeln springt und euch das Mahl der Hochzeit bringt. Wacht auf, ermuntert euch, den Bräutigam zu empfangen. Dort, sehet, kommt ihr hergegangen.
Okay, so Bach's working conditions in the Leipzig illustrate the musicians in an era of when no one worked solely as a flourishing commercial city of about 30,000, a center home to Germany's leading university, founded in the 1409. It took in the birthday and the boarding between the 50 and the 60 scholarships for the boys and the youth chosen for their musical and scholastical abilities. In return, they sang or played in the service of the four main Leipzig churches and fulfilled other musical duties. Bach's position as cantor obliged him to teach Latin and music 4 hours each day and to compose, copy, and rehearse music for the church services. He directed the top choir and supervised the other three, conducted by older students who were his assistants. He trained some of the best students on the instrument and directed them in the church instrumental ensemble, which also include the performers from the town and the university. In his early years, he composed at least one major work for the church each week, then gradually lessened his pace. He had further duties of providing music for the town's ceremonies and at the university, and he received additional fees to compose and lead music for the weddings, funerals, and other special occasions. For all this, he was paid a comfortable middle-class income and provide with an apartment for his family in one wing of the school, including a personal study for composing and for housing his professional library. Bach learned composition primarily by copying or arranging the music of the other composers, a habit maintained throughout his career. Among his pieces are adaptations of the music by Torelli, Vivaldi, Telemann, and numerous others. In this way, he became familiar with the method of the four foremost composers in Italy, Germany, Austria, and France. According to his son Carl Philipp Emanuel, Bach typically composed away from the keyboard, then tested the result by playing through it. The most important step was inventing the principal theme or subject on which Bach then elaborated using established conventions of genre, form, and harmonic structure. When working with the text, as in a recitative or aria, he wrote the vocal melody first, fitting it to the accentuation and the meaning of the words. Bach's manuscript shows that he continually sought to improve his music, making small revisions as he copied out a score or performing part, revising afresh when he performed a piece again. He also frequently reworked his own existing pieces for the new forces, new uses, or new words. Many of his cantata movements are adapted from earlier cantatas, instrumental works, or other musics. So this is all about the Bach, and the important music by him is Saint John Passion and Matthew Passion. These musics are all based by Bible about the Jesus Passion by Matthew and John. So this is the opening chorus. Herr unser Herr scare from the Saint John Passion by Bach. You can feel the drama of this music. In the Baroque era, drama is the most important thing. And, Bach used word with the music to explain the Jesus passion. So lastly, I'm going to talk about the George Frederick Handel. Probably you know the music Hallelujah from Messiah by Handel. So important and so famous in the world. So I hope you guys already know about it. So Frederick Handel, unlike Vivaldi and Bach, who rarely traveled outside their countries, George Frederick Bach Handel moved comfortably between the German, Italian, and English-speaking cities. His German music teacher gave him a thorough education in organ, harpsichord, counterpoint, and current German and Italian idioms. When he was a young man, 3 years at the Hamburg Opera House and 4 years in Italy helped to lay the foundation of his style. He matured as a composer in England, the country then most sociable to foreign composers. Moreover, England provided the choral tradition that made Handel's oratorios possible. Vivaldi's influence on the musical world was immediate, although he died almost totally forgotten. And Bach's work lay in comparative obscurity until the 19th century, but Handel won the international renown during his lifetime, and his music has been performed ever since, making him the first composer whose music has never ceased to be performed. Handel's music was popular when his music for the royal fireworks was given a public rehearsal in the 1749. It attracted an audience of over 12,000 people and stopped the traffic in London for 3 hours. And you can see the picture on the screen is about the fireworks. So how could a composer gain such a popularity, and why should it be Handel? The answer to the first question is that for virtually the first time a composer was working for the public, not just for the church, a court, or the town council. And why Handel? He had a keen business sense and was supremely adaptable, able to measure and serve the taste of the public. He could do this because of his cosmopolitan style, drawing on the German, Italian, French, and English music. So I'm going to share his music from the Messiah by soprano solo. This is so beautiful music. You can see that his style for the public.
Rejoice, 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 rejoice.
Yeah, this music is from the Messiah by Handel, the one of his oratorio, the most famous one. So now Handel's music with opera and the oratorio was so famous in England, not only England, you know, or Europe, but uh, as I as I teach you about the church history music, I'm going to focus on his oratorio because oratorio is sacred music. Not only sacred music because Handel's oratorios are all phenomenal. So uh, in the 1730s, Handel devised a new genre that would reward him as richly as the opera had and bring him his greatest popularity. The English oratorio, as we have seen, the Italian oratorios resembled operas in style, telling their story through a series of the recitative arias and the choruses, but were on the sacred subject, usually from the Bible, and were present in concerts or as a part of the religious devotions rather than on stage, usually in a church hall or in a patron's residence. Handel had written such a work, La Resurrezione, during his stay in Rome. In his English oratorios, he continued aspects of the Italian tradition by setting dialogue in the recitative and the lyrical verses as arias. The later resembled his opera arias in form, style, the natures of musical ideas, and techniques for expressing the affections. But Handel and his librettists brought into their oratorios elements that were foreign to Italian opera, taken from the French classical drama, ancient Greek tragedy, and the German Passion, and especially the English Mask and the Anthem. That's why his oratorio is phenomenal. So I'm done with that, teaching the history in the 18th century. So for the last, I'm going to show you this video. I know everyone know this song, but you know, this music is so good. And um, I expect that I'm going to play this chorus for the last day of the church year. So thank you for enjoying my lecture, and I expect that I'm going to teach 19th century music with so many examples like today, because I think for understanding 18th and the 19th century music, just watching videos of more, more and more is better than just talking about the history, because I already complete to talk about, the the strong institution, established by uh Protestant church and Catholic church also. So this tradition is keep going to stay their own institution. So I think just giving you more examples is much better than just talking about. So bye everyone, and enjoy this music. Thank you. Yeah, Handel's Messiah's Hallelujah chorus.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Amen.